Hey, Reliability Gang, I'm Jonathan Guiney.
And I'm Brendan Russ, and welcome to Reliability Radio, a JLL production, ReliabilityWeb.com media brand.
So, Brendan, finishing up IMC here, day 3, had a lot of great guests on the podcast. But I want to talk about one thing that's not talked about in the showcase. It's not talked about throughout the event this week, from what I've heard. But let's talk about sustainment of programs and really driving the investments that we make to a full ROI.
Yeah, the investments in how we try to treat our people, right? Technology is advancing, a lot of AI, talked about a lot of the new tools that are coming out there. But we got to make sure we understand, like, continuous improvement. You got to sustain this as it goes along. People have to be prepared with succession plans or additional trainings. What happens after you're done with that shiny box coming to your new door?
Well, what happens after you see that initial ROI, you claim that project as a success? Jimmy, who's been using that technology for a couple of years, decides to go take that next role.
Suddenly, Tom or Sally behind him has no idea how to use the tool as well as he did.
Yeah, and with that, let's welcome Jeff from RDI to the podcast. Jeff, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Why don't you take a minute and tell us about yourself and RDI?
Yeah, so my name's Jeff Hay. I'm the CEO of RDI. Started the company in 2013. And we do something called motion amplification, where we use video and cameras to measure vibration. So you can use our cameras to look at an asset, whether that be a motor or a pump or a compressor. And not only can you measure the vibration of the machine, but you can actually visualize it and see it. So with this technology, it allows users to understand their machinery better. It allows them to get at root cause of problems because they can actually see the issue. So the base is coming up off the ground, there's soft foot, there's a crack, there's looseness, and that enables them to fix things and actually get an improvement in their equipment quicker. And it really facilitates communication across the organization because you get a lot of technical and non-technical people. So we have this whole vibration world out there of people who understand what machines are doing in their head, but when they go to communicate that to a non-technical person who may be in charge of the maintenance budget and fixing their equipment, there's a breakdown. And so
bingo, that visual is huge.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's sort of a universal language. The communication, immediately happens. You can't unsee it. And it really helps the non-technical person understand really what's happening in a technical world.
For those of you out there that have tried to convince somebody that you have found the fault in vibration analysis with a spectrum and waveform to somebody who has no idea what that is, it looks like you're just showing people squiggly lines. But if you show them a picture of a video of that entire foot on that pump raising and lowering, that really gets people's attention pretty quick.
Yeah, If you're not a technical person and you're told that you need to spend, $50,000 to $100,000 fixing something because this line is above this line, you're sort of behind the 8 ball on being able to get your point across.
So when you're going out in industry, there's a lot of passionate people that really do enjoy this technology. I know that for a fact. I'm one of them. I think this is great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So I also know that it takes a lot of time and investment to get somebody to be able to use that technology to its fullest extent, to be able to very quickly go out there, set up the cameras, the isolation pads, everything else you need to do, then go ahead and process it to make those recordings. Really impactful upfront benefits. And then what happens?
Well, a couple of things, and it really depends on the program, right? So a lot of programs have good procedures in place that enable them to continue the momentum. And then other programs, they get the win, they get that, and they've got their return on investment. And so depending on whether or not they have a program that has procedures in place to implement technologies on a regular basis, it may sustain, it may keep going, but there is the sort of unfortunate experience in some organizations where the technology might get set on the shelf because they've got their value from it, and so they haven't sort of either looked at the big picture in how to implement that, and we work with our customers to try to expand their knowledge about what it can do. I think it's it's kind of, I don't know if you've ever seen the Seinfeld episode where Jerry gets his dad the the pocket, calculate organizer, and all he uses it to do is like calculate the tip for the bill at a restaurant. And Jerry's just trying to explain it can do so much more, and it's sort of like that sort of analogy. It has such a tremendous immediate use case that some people just really hone in on that. We try to expand their knowledge.
Can we pull on that thread just a little bit more? So what's some of the cooler things that outside of fans and pumps and rotating assets, what do you use your technology for?
The most common thing people go out and do is they troubleshoot with it. They go out and they have this problem that's been, dogging them for years or months, and they immediately fix it, right? And that's a very common use case. But what we try to do is get people to use it higher on the PF curve. So in commissioning, for example, in commissioning is a great use case, because when you find the issue, you're having a conversation with the OEM about them fixing the issue. So you don't allow the fault to even get into your facility in the first place. You're not on the hook for fixing it. And we really encourage our users to, on any installation, any sort of new asset, tie acceptance criteria to the camera so they can use it to make sure installation is done correctly. And then that ties back to that communication piece where the OEM might say, well, we did it correctly, we followed our procedure, but when you show them the video, a different conversation starts to happen.
Using that, like you said, as that operational checkout before acceptance, making sure that the OEM's done what they need to do, or the GC, right? Maybe the GC piped something incorrectly and there's some stress in that pipe that's causing some other issues down the line.
Yeah, and so we just launched a new product for Class 1 Division 2 hazardous areas.
Oh, wow.
So you can do continuous monitoring. One really big push we have right now is utilization on piping. So there's not really a good technology to monitor piping. I mean, you can put an accelerometer on a pipe, but you can't do that to scale. It's often on ferrous. You can't attach it easy, and we're really built for that. I mean, we can see large swaths of pipe. We can measure every single location in the field of view all at the same time, and now we can go into hazardous areas. So we're really that's a use case we really feel strongly about, that we're being able to fit that need.
You got to peel back isolation or insulation when you're doing some of this pipe work, or even with?
Not necessarily. I mean, if it's really critical and you think there might be an underlying issue, you might want to, but you can, that insulation is going to ride with it and you're going to be able to pick it up. And, a lot of we're looking at, it's interesting because we're looking at a lot of the standards out there, and it's tough because those standards seem like they've been built for tools that the best we have, right? And so, they try to make a measurement, and you can't really. It's hard to follow that standard because there's no really good way to do it. But now I think we can really start to affect that by being able to, measure the whole pipe at all locations, not just pick and choose. So you can really do a holistic measurement.
So when we're talking about all of these other types of capabilities that your technology does, or just really anything, so how do you try to encapsulate that when you're going in and you find that somebody put it on the shelf? How do you go and resell something that they've already bought, that they think that, okay, I checked that box, I'm good?
Yeah, that's a good question. And, I think fortunately when we have that conversation, let's say we talk to the maintenance manager or the reliability lead, and they are not the user, right? But a user has left the facility. And that's the most common thing that happens. And when we experience problems with turnover in facilities, just like everybody else, but in our case, because we're a newer technology, we've been out about 10 years, and in comparison to all the other technologies, that's pretty small. And so what that means is that it's less likely for a new person coming from another facility to have been trained on our tool, right? If most people have been trained on thermal, most people have been trained on ultrasound, they know how to pick those up. But and we're changing that. We run into more and more users moving around. But it is a problem that there'll be turnover and a new user comes in and they don't have training. And so luckily though, when we talk to the maintenance managers, they're on board for getting that done. Sometimes the challenge is really the budget for training. A couple years ago, training budgets just got travel just got kind of decimated in budgets. And so we work with them, try to come up with a schedule to, sort of get it. We started implementing virtual training, things like that. We don't get pushback from it. It's just more about timing and working with them, making sure we stay on it to get that accomplished.
And is that mainly just working with having those personal relationships and trying to drive that forward, or you see that kind of being more of a holistic approach to their condition monitoring program?
I think it's a holistic approach. I think it is, for us, we see that turnover, just that happening from our perspective. But internal, I think it's a cultural issue, or it's a systemic issue in the company, because lots of people don't want to come up with a plan for themselves if they leave, right? But that's what really every organization should have is plans in place. And that's really the answer, is not having that loss of knowledge when you move forward. So there's a transition plan. And I think that's really, especially in today's climate where we're seeing a lot of that turnover, I think it does a lot of good for organizations to have those plans in place.
So as we start to wind this episode down, you want to give us any last minute words of wisdom, just in general, of what you're seeing here at IMC for the audience?
Yeah. So, one thing I think we are hearing a ton about AI, and we use AI just in our business, right? For lots of things. I think it's interesting. I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch in what rises to the top and what sort of sinks to the bottom. The consolidation hasn't happened yet. That always happens within these areas. But I do think it's important for everyone to have an AI, sort of roadmap within their organization. We have a twofold. We have it within our organization for use of our employees, to make like agentic AI to help with tasks, things like that. But we're really excited. We have a new product coming out where we're going to be integrating AI into our product, into our cameras. And what's exciting about that is we already have a product that is really easy to use and it's really easy to understand. But this is really going to make it even easier when we launch it, and we're really excited about that.
Awesome. Can't wait to see what happens. Well, Jeff, thank you for joining us today. And for everybody else out there, we'll catch you next time on the next episode of Reliability Radio.